Okay, let's go. Get a cup of coffee. You may not be a coffee drinker. I am, if you know me at all. But I just have a short assignment for this week, and it's a short week for us here on campus. And so that I thought maybe it'd be a good time to also make that possible for you guys too. At least that's my excuse. I'm always interested in what all of you are doing out there in the field and that sort of thing. I know we've got about half of you are on campus and that sort of thing. You're sure always welcome to give me a holler or give me a call, and I love seeing you face to face. And we can make that happen for anybody as far as a virtual meeting. If you're way out there, like I know some of you are, and you've got families, you've got jobs, you've got farms, you've got ranches, that sort of thing. I always like to touch base and see you in person just to see how you're doing. But reach out to me if you have any questions on this. Staying on the practical side of things, and that's what this class is all about. With the record keeping, practicality is huge. I think when you start combining and putting together a record system that works for you, okay? Those are things that you need to think about. You need to build a system that you will use and takes you forward. And you can always start small, start simple, and progress from there and make it more complicated. Okay? So anyway, we haven't done the income or earning side of your QuickBooks Online that you've been setting up over the course of last week. So I just want you to think about the possibilities so that we pragmatically set this thing up. If you make some mistakes, good, because that's what life is all about, is that we make a few mistakes every once in a while. Then we realize that we don't know everything, so we go get some expert help, and then we maybe even model what we're doing after somebody else. It's always easier if you let somebody else make all those mistakes and they're willing to share how they set things up and succeeded through those efforts. So little advice there first thing in the morning too, maybe for some of you, or in the evening. So let's talk about a little bit about what kinds of income, earnings, or sales accounts that you would have. Now, first of all, this is your QuickBooks Online. And some of you are going to choose or will choose or have chosen to actually get to know a computerized accounting system in the cloud that's free. And so this is just an opportunity for you to get kind of comfortable with this. What kind of accounts will you set up as maybe a 19, 20-year-old student? And then we'll get into some of the other ones that you would use for a particular agricultural operation. Well, the first one, of course, would be your earnings. Maybe you've got a part-time job, okay? In the real simple world, you're a full-time student. Maybe you're living on campus. You might have a part-time job. You might be working in the ag department. You might be working for one of the other departments, and you're bringing in work-study funds into your particular accounting system. So those would be called earnings, and that would be classified as an income for you. Okay, it's not really a sales, so we're not taking a product to market or anything like that, but you would have that. I've also suggested that you consider your scholarship funds that you get and loan funds to incorporate into this system just to see how they work. Okay, a loan fund would actually be a little bit different. It's not an income, it's not a sales, and it's not an earnings. We're going to have to pay that back with future earnings, actually, aren't we? Since it's a liability. So we're not going to deal with that one too much, but if you need some help setting that one up or something similar to it, give me a call. Okay, so a part-time job or a job that you have. would be something that you set up. Scholarship funds and grants would also be earnings that you had to fill out an application or apply for, and we could inject those into your accounting system. Now, typically they don't go through your checking account. So my suggestion has been to the students that have brought that up is that we bring them in as an income account, scholarships and grants, and then we show that they're being spent for particular items like tuition, books, room and board. Those kinds of items would go under the expense items. So, and we want to wash those things out. I do know that there are a few lucky students, and it's not luck, it's generally those that put in enough effort. They have good grades, they come in scholastically very sound, and also just put the effort into applying for some of these things that have even additional funds. And if it's the right type of funds, it moves it into your checking account. So you may have surplus funds that would be considered an earnings or a sales. And we can incorporate that into your accounting system and make it work. Okay, so those would be a couple of different earnings that a college student would have in order to show some positive. One student, when I had her on the phone this last week, said, "Well, I put all those expenses, but my checking account's in the red." And it's like, I know. Just settle. We'll just we're taking this one step at a time. We're going to show some income as we go too. So we're the other side of the equation. But okay, let's talk a little bit briefly. And these are things that we're probably going to talk about later on in the semester, more in depth. But I wanted to touch on them so that you could kind of get a feel for them. Okay, in the world of QuickBooks Online or any computerized accounting system, and that would be things like livestock sales. So, and they would have possibly some sub-accounts to the livestock sales account. So we would set up a general major account. I call them major accounts because they're over all these other ones that we might have. Now again, if your accounting system is really simple, then keep it as simple as possible so that we can get what we need out of it. Always be thinking about what you're going to get at the end. And you may not have, all the things that you might use with this information in your head right now, but we can build on that. Okay, and you can talk to me, and I might say, well, I think instead of vehicle expenses on the expense side, maybe you need to put in there fuel and oil and lube and repairs. There's be 4. 5 would be insurance, under as sub-accounts to vehicle expenses. All right, I mean, you're thinking right, but we can it would be interesting to know how much you spent on fuel, for instance, how much you spent on versus insurance versus some of the other expenditures. Okay, so anyway, getting back to the positive side or the earnings and sales side of things, we could have some livestock sales accounts set up under cattle, sheep, dairy, goats, whatever, and however you're diversified. They might be club calves. It might be, all kinds of different things. We might have a sub to the sub accounts. Again, if it's not going to give you any good information, then it's not worthy of actually being making it so sophisticated. But I can see in certain operations, at some point you might want to say, well, I want to be able to see on one line item how much my sales were for marketable livestock classes. I may have additional sub accounts to that one called calves, yearlings. I may even, if I get real sophisticated, and I can see, I have producers that have worked up their accounting systems where they separate them by sex, so they're females or heifers and steers, and or bulls and heifers, and those kinds of things, so that they can pinpoint where the profitability centers are within their livestock sales. Cull livestock, there's an annual type of marketed part of your business that is generally, if you're big enough, can be considerable. So most operations of any size will have also a sales item called cull livestock. Could be cows, it might be multiples of sheep, or any other classification of livestock too that we would put those into. Crops would kind of follow the same kind of symmetry to our accounts. I would have, I have several crops, I'm going to have a crop sales account as a major account, and then I might separate it between irrigated and dry land. If you're all irrigated, or you're mostly irrigated with a very small percentage of dry land, it may or may not work out where you want to sub-account under those headings. So, you know, use this with some common sense. Underneath that, I could have hay, which could be separated into several. You might have grass hay, you might have alfalfa hay, you might have mixed hay. If you're predominantly a hay producer, those are very, very good sub accounts. Might have barley, sugar beets, edible beans, wheat, the plethora of different crops out there identified under each one of those. Hopefully you're getting the idea behind that sort of thing. Now I want to touch on this last one, and that's the sale of capital items. That would be if you sold any fixed assets or depreciable assets, and those would be, I always want you to think about these things in terms of those reports or the financial statements that we've already talked about. So actually, depreciable assets, we're going to get into a whole unit on depreciation and how to do that and that sort of thing, but we only are going to show the amount above the book value. If that makes sense to some of you that are in accounting, then that's good. But we won't handle that. Or if you have specific questions that you want to set up right now in your accounting system where this would apply, then I want you to call me, because I can set you up and get you going really quickly with this sort of thing. So those would be some ideas of accounts that would actually apply possibly to your bookkeeping system in QuickBooks. The next video is going to be on how to set up these and use them within the QuickBooks environment. Okay, so I'll see you there.